Oh, well, here we are. It's Sunday, July 2nd, 2023. I'm Larissa. This is my video diary. Oh, so I got this new product I've never tried before. It's a shampoo. It's a hair dye shampoo. Now, I have made hair dye shampoos before, but not really. Like, um, you put your leftover hair dye into your shampoo or your conditioner, and you leave it in there, and you mix it up, and then you use that to like touch up your hair or whatever. I've done that before. Lots of people have done that before. This is a product. It's a hair dye shampoo. I dyed my hair with shampoo. Look at that. Not bad, huh? Not bad. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. See if it gives me some sort of rash or some weird reaction in a few days, or if my hair all falls out and I'm bald or whatever. We'll see. But yeah, not bad, huh? Not bad. Not bad. Yeah. A little bit darker. Not red. Right? It's supposed to be black. It's not. I didn't make my hair black. I made it brown. Yeah. Something a little different. Why not? Why not? So this painting. This painting that I'm working on right now. It's almost done. It's not done yet. It's almost done. It's getting there. I'm really angry about this painting. It's my least favorite of the four. Although I guess I should reserve judgment until it's totally done, until I've totally finished with it. But it's my least favorite so far. And I spent yesterday just looking at it. Spent yesterday all day looking at this damn painting. Just looking at this painting. And I've reconciled part of what was bothering me about it. So, first thing, after I laid out the blue line under sketch, right? I call it that because I use a drafting pencil, right? I use a blue drafting pencil. When I do the blue line under sketch here, I was gonna, I made a choice of which part to start with. I should have gone with my gut. So the painting is broken. Each of the paintings, I put a grid over the painting. It's a 5x5 grid, 5 units by 5 units, right? And that's just the way it worked out. It's not like 5x5 is meant. Well, it kind of is because it gives you a center square. But anyway, it was just happy accident that it turned out that worked. And it's because I did the studies as 10 inch by 10 inches, and so I was able to break them down into 2 inch by 2 inch squares in the grid that goes on top of the drawing. And then the canvases that I'm using are 40 inches by 40 inches, and so that breaks down into, I can do five 8 inch by 8 inch squares, right? So it's a 5x5 translation. And it works out for like rule thirds and everything, and breaking, having an odd number. I'm glad it's an odd number, not an even number. Even an even number grid would have been a much more static. So these are much more dynamic images because it's an odd number breakdown. So I could have broken it down into 4 squares. Well, I could on the big one, but it would have been harder on the small grid to break that down in a 4x4. But anyway. The part of the image that fell in the top middle square, predominantly in the top middle square, it bleeds over into one of the other ones as well, but that's the part that I chose to start painting, where I chose to start painting. My initial reaction was to start in either corner, and with the walls of the interior of the space that's in the subject matter of the image. And I chose to start in the center, at the center top, because I was like, oh, I'll work down and then come back up around. Because I'm like, oh, while I'm painting, I want my elbow to get into the paint, and if it's still tacky, blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, I should have done those. I should have done those first. Should have done those first. Should have done those first. And then, or worked from the bottom up. But the issue is that the image itself, like the direction of the image is from top corner, top left corner, down to the bottom right corner, right? That's the composition draws the eye in that manner, and then brings it back up to the middle, top middle. So the end point is where I started painting, and I should have started painting at the start point, right? The visual start point, the where the eye is drawn through the composition itself. And so the problems that this caused, right? Or that the problems that happened in this process is that I dripped paint working in the start point when I finally got to the start point, the visual start point of the painting, and I was painting there, I dripped onto paint that was half dry. And in fixing that, I disturbed the surface tension of the paint, and it's the brush stroke thing. Like it ruined my, ugh. And so that's standing out to me. It's standing out to me. It's really bothering me. But I think I need to get over it. And this is what I came to yesterday, looking at this painting all fucking day, because that's what I was doing all day, just looking at this painting. I was listening to music. Omar put on some jazz, and I was like, oh, that was perfect. So I always forget about jazz. I always forget about it. And then I put it on. I'm like, oh, yeah, jazz. So listening to the jazz and looking at this painting and thinking about the composition, comparing, juxtaposing the composition of jazz to the painting, and thinking about, how representationally, difference between classical music and jazz, and the way emotions are represented, in a very concrete way in classical music, very straightforward. It's like, oh yes, this is very, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Omar, would you mind taking that hamper downstairs so that I can start that laundry this morning? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for putting on jazz yesterday. It really helped.
Oh, good.
So the juxtaposition of emotion is what I was talking about. So, emotion is very, I'm going to compare music to painting, or to painting genre. Classical, I'd compare classical music to photorealism, right? So emotionally, so in a classical piece of music when you're supposed to be feeling happy, or when you're supposed to be feeling sad, or when you're supposed to be feeling angry. It's very literal, right? Where in jazz it's more representational, right? It's more expressionistic. It's more, and you see, in throughout history, music genre next to visual art genre. So it was helpful listening to the jazz, because I'm not doing photorealism, right? So it pulled me away from that. I'm like, okay, I need to accept that this is not a classical painting, right? And you are not a classical painter. That's not what the genre is. You're holding yourself to a criteria that does not apply to the genre in which you're working, right? Like trying to it would be like trying to ref basketball with football rules. Not the same sport. So it's like, okay, Larissa, you can let that go. And then just thinking about, from that perspective of jazz interpretation, right? Interpretive jazz, because that's, I was listening to interpretive jazz. It was interpretive jazz. when I was at this point. Oh, Bill Evans. Love you, Bill Evans. Is Bill Evans, are you dead? Probably. Rest in peace, Bill Evans, if you're dead. If you're not dead, I'm sorry, sir. And thank you for your music. I'm picking up my tea. Omar just brought me my tea. So, where this wabi sabi happened, that's the other thing. I was like, oh, fuck the whole wabi sabi. This isn't wabi sabi. But anyway, the paint, where the smudge, the inadvertent smudge happened, and is in the part that of the painting that is the mud of the in the image, the ground, the dirt. And I was looking at it and sitting with it and meditating on the dream that the image is coming from, and ultimately it would be a huge risk, but to go back and start making more smudges, because it is indicative and evocative of, I should say, evocative of the mud and the footprints and the squishing, and because that was the whole thing in the dream, the suction sound and the way that the feet, everybody's feet were moving in and out of this mud, and the feeling of the mud on my feet and the slickness, and when I came back to that, to what the essence of the image is supposed to be, coming from where the image originates, it's accurate. And so I'm left with, do I not like it because of aesthetic, or do I not like it because I couldn't control it? And it was because I couldn't control it. So I have to go back in today to look at it more, and see how I feel about that today. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yesterday when I went in, I was at the point where, like, I wanted to take this painting and beat it over a rock and burn it. I don't feel that way now. Still my least favorite painting, but I'm not sure why that is yet. And I'm trying to withhold that judgment until it is complete, because, like I said, it is not complete. I still have canvas. I still have bare canvas that needs to be covered. There's still an element of the image, that of the composition, that is yet to be completed. So, and it's a very small area, but it is the object of the painting. Right? So it's kind of important, no matter how big it is. It's the object of the painting. So, yeah. Yeah, you got to look at your composition similarly to the way that you look at the way you diagram a sentence. Object, subject, predicate, verb. Yeah. Oh, so we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. And for the past 2 days, I have not read chapters from the book. So that's something else I want to do today. Read a couple more chapters. Who knows? Maybe I'll do 2 segments. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. We will see. Yeah. Anyway, so the other day, I was at the local pub, and no, I did not have a beer. I had ginger ale. I don't really like beer, right? Beer is not my choice, right? I don't really like beer. It gives me gas, and so it's a lot of calories. It's a lot of calories. And the flavor of beer is, there's a couple beers that I like more than others, right? But it's not my palate, right? I don't hate beer, but it's just, eh, you know? I'm not an alcoholic, so it's not like deliver the alcohol by any means necessary kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I can take or leave beer. But I like the guy that owns the place. And there's frequently some interesting conversation you can have, at a pub. So there's this kid there, and it's funny, he's talking to this other guy at the bar about, they're talking about current events, whatever. And I remember when I was in my 20s, I really believed I believed most of what I saw in the media, right? And that's kind of where this kid was, because I was, listening to them talk about, oh, this general did this and this general did that. I'm like, you know what? None of us know what anybody really fucking did because we're not there. All we know is what they want us to think, right? And so, listen to him and everything. I think this, I think that, I think this, I think that. And then this other older couple comes in, and one's like, oh, I've met you, I've met you, a lot of history. And it's just, this is this kid. And it's like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, okay. So we have somebody who's a history buff and likes to follow war and things, but has never really experienced anything, right? Like, oh, okay. And finally, just after, we were talking, and I said, how old are you? He's like 25. I said, oh, okay. And he got all upset because I told him that he didn't have life experience. I said, oh, okay. Yeah, because we were talking about media and news, and he's like, well, why would they lie to me? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, because I finally said, look, you have to ask yourself when these stories come up, because we moved on from Crimea to the submarine, the little submersible vehicle that imploded going down there to the Titanic. I said, when these kinds of stories come up, yeah, it's tragic, but this is way more news coverage than this story deserves. And it keeps being brought up and brought up and brought up and brought up for people to talk about over and over and over and over again here. You have to ask yourself, what are you being distracted from? What is the smoke and mirrors? Why are we being told to look over here? What's over here that that they don't want us to see, kind of thing. He's like, that's a conspiracy theory, blah! I'm like, no, that's how media works. He's like, no, it's not. No, I'm like, yes, it is. And that's when I finally asked him. I said, how old are you? And he's like, 25. I'm like, oh. And I told him, I said, I'm speaking from a position of having worked for a major media kind of thing, and why I quit. I learned very quickly how they did things, and I was disgusted, right? Like, this was when I was writing for Patch.com and had that editor, Karina Ioffe. And her sister worked, evidently. I saw an interview with a gal who had her last name was Ioffe, and she looked just like this girl, only older. I'm like, that must be a relative, and she worked in the Obama administration. That's how this shit works. Yeah, but he didn't believe me that media does that, or that that there is, whether spoken or unspoken, an agreement between media and government, that because if you don't put out the right message that they want you to put out, then you don't get access to information. And he didn't want to believe that. He didn't want to hear that. And he didn't want to hear that his lack of experience because of his age was a factor in his illusionment. And he got all upset, and he got up and he walked away, and then he came back. He's like, when you told me that, he's like, I've heard this from a lot of people. I'm like, I just met you. That was my reaction, and I just met you. So, maybe that's something you need to listen to. He's like, I shut down. It makes me want to shut down. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. That sounds like your problem, not mine. Right? So, like, what do you expect? And he said, I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry I'm sorry I disillusioned you to your ignorance. Right? And I'm not saying that that there aren't things that I'm going to learn or gain because I get older. Right? That's just the way it goes. That's why we're not born adults. And this kid was not an adult. He was a 25-year-old child. He looked like a big baby. He did. I said, at one point in the conversation, I said, yeah, I worked 4 jobs while he's like, you worked 4 jobs? When you went to school? I said, yeah, and I went to school full time. And he was just like, I'm like, yeah. Yeah. I didn't ask him where he was going to school or if he was going to school or what his story was. I didn't ask. And he didn't offer. Because I'm not a college counselor, and I'm not interested in being one. Anyway. Hey, Brody. Brody. Oh my gosh, Brody, yesterday when I got home, he was like, sniff, 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 sniffing all the dogs on me. Met all kinds of dogs yesterday. Saw all kinds of dogs yesterday. Met a new dog yesterday, Ralphie. Shout out, Ralphie. Ralphie, I hope you bring your mommy and daddy in next time or sometime. Your babysitter was very nice. Yeah. Ralphie, black poodle, 2-year-old black poodle, dragged his person in. And then the way he was acting like Goldie. And I said, there's another dog that comes in that behaves very similarly to this. I said, his name's Goldie. Turns out Ralphie and Goldie are friends. The guy's like, yeah, I think he says, I think he knows Goldie. I said, did Goldie tell you? Did Goldie tell you, Ralphie? Did Goldie tell you you need to go down there and meet that Miss Larissa down there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The woofs. Yay for the woofs. Brody. He's laying down there. He doesn't want to be in the video. He says, I don't want to be in a video. No, mommy, no. Anyway, yeah. That's my story today. Go down and look at that painting some more.